Hey everyone, welcome back to Panther Network. I'm your host, Lizzie Lowe, and today I'm joined by
Benny Smith.
Thank you for being here today, and today's podcast is powered by Lost and Found Records. You can find them at 3710 North Broadway. For good vibes and hit records, be sure to stop in and see what you can add to your collection. So today we're talking about your career and everything that you've gone through with your work career. So what radio stations have you worked on, and which one has been your favorite?
Cool. Thanks, Lizzie. Thanks for getting me here today. I appreciate that. I'm a Panther too. My daughter just graduated here from last year, and so I appreciate you guys, and I love what you're doing. I've worked with several different stations. I started out back in my hometown in Greenville, Tennessee at WGRV, WIKQ when I was 16. From there, I went on in 1985 and started work at WUTK when I was a student there. And then after I left WUTK, I went on and did a bluegrass radio show at WQLA in La Follette called Soppin' the Gravy. And what Soppin' the Gravy was a precursor for a station in Knoxville, WDVX. Our tower is in Clinton, but we reach Knoxville and other areas. And so from there, I also worked at WDVX. I also worked at 100.3 The River, WOKI, when I was back in, I guess, the early 2000s, and also WFIV out in Farragut. Went out there and kind of flipped their format for them in the early 2000s. Came back to WUTK in 2004, was general manager there for 20 years, and so I just retired from UT to accept a job at WDVX. So I'm now the Marketing and Community Relations Director at WDVX. Our studio is downtown in the Visit Knoxville Center. And I host a show called the Clinch River Breakdown on Sundays from noon to 2. My favorite, man, that's a tough one. I mean, UT is kind of my favorite because that's my alma mater, and that's where I started. I love WDVX, especially for what it does to the community. Bluegrass and Soppin' the Gravy was great because it was kind of stirred people up to motivate them so that we could have WDVX. But I guess I got to go back to where it all starts, and that's WGRV because of the lessons I learned there and because of how it taught me how important radio was to the community and how radio can be a positive influence and lift every community that it serves.
That's what paved your path to go on to the rest of it.
It married my passion with a paycheck, like I said, and that allowed me to get up every day and never go to work. I always loved what I do, and here I am. Started at 16, still doing it at 60.
Yeah, so now that you've listed that impressive career and working for so many different shows and programs, what was that like? How was the transition to each show? How was trying to figure out how times were changing, how genres were changing, anything like that?
Yeah, that's a great question because it does change. And one thing radio has done that other media has not done as good a job of is stay with the curve of technological change or even in front of it, by being able to stream, number one, and by developing apps for radio stations and things like that. So it's important, but it was very important to me at WUTK when I was general manager because I had to teach that too. We had to do it daily, but I also had to teach how we did it and why we did it. And so that was very important. And through the years, obviously, I've had to learn, you never stop learning. You never stop. When you stop learning, the day you stop learning is the day you stop working, really. And so I'm always learning, always looking, always researching, always asking others at other stations. Like right now at WDVX, we are really in a concerted effort to up our social media game. And that's just what today's times call for.
That's how you're going to reach our generation.
Absolutely. And adding that video aspect, you're absolutely right. And pushing our stream more. We're trying to young our audience up a little bit. And so, that's so important and a great question because, again, not only have I had to do this stuff, but also I've had to teach it along the way as well. And that's very important. And the transition from station to station has not been too bad for me because I've kind of chosen to make those transitions. I wasn't kind of pushed in those directions. So I'm blessed to be able to make those choices because I made those choices because it was something I wanted to do. I wanted to go help WDVX start up because I knew what Americana music was and was booking all these bands and bringing them to play during the 90s when Americana music was really starting to grow. So it's been a fun, but you're right. It is a transition to each one, and each one does handle social media differently and technology differently, but you got to stay out in front of that curve, and radio's done a good job of that.
So from a worker's perspective and a teacher's perspective, what has been the most valuable thing you've learned?
You learn how to work with people. That's one thing you learn, especially at WUTK when I was a teacher there and ran that station. I had 100 students every semester, and each one of them is different. And you learn to work with those personalities, and you learn to deal with those personalities. And you do that. I do that at other stations as well. And especially when I'm going out and selling underwriting, which is non-commercial form of advertising, you really get to know people and develop relationships there. But frankly, being able to work with students when I was at UT and help them start their career, and seeing when the light goes off, when they're there at the station and they do something like, interview somebody for the sports show or pick a really hot song from an artist that we added into rotation that nobody knew about, that all of a sudden explodes, and they're like, I did that. That really was something that lifted me every day. That was the reason I went to work every day at UT, and I juggled a lot of balls, wore a lot of hats. It was very intense every day. But just seeing those students come to WUTK and figure out, this is what I want to do the rest of my life, so rewarding. And then to see them go on and do things and come back and go, this is the station that started this for me. This is why I did this. I mean, Mike Keith, the new voice of the Vols, Tennessee Vols, he texted me the day he got the job, and he goes, this is a victory for WUTK. This happened because of WUTK. And he goes, you should be proud of that. I'm proud of that. We should all be proud of that. But this wouldn't be happening if it wasn't for WUTK. So I got the voice of the Tennessee Vols telling me that. But that just shows that, when he was a student, he was able to recognize what he wanted to do to exercise his passion and put it toward his profession. And he found that at WUTK. And so that is a reward that every day down there in the basement of Annie Holt Tower would keep me coming back.
Yeah, getting to see students buy in to what you were teaching them.
Big time. It was a relief for them. They're like, I found it. We spent all these thousands of dollars. Absolutely. And that's a really cool thing. And it may change down the line, but at least it kicks them into a job or into a career that they love.
Right. Who has been the best artist or media personnel that you've gotten to interview/work with?
My goodness. I mean, there's so many. I've been blessed.
Maybe a top five. Maybe that could be easier.
Yeah, Joey Ramone from the Ramones, Chuck D from Public Enemy, Richard Lloyd from the great punk band that played CBGBs for years. Television was just fantastic. Every time Steve Earle, who is a great Americana musician, was a great interview. I could go on and on. I've had a lot of sports interviews as well. Interviewing the great legendary Doc Watson was amazing. He was one of the greatest names ever in American folk music. Interviewing Ralph Stanley, a bluegrass legend. I've really got to interview a plethora, if you will, of musicians and artists, and even some sports figures as well. Again, part of this job that is just, I'm like, whoa, I'm sitting across from this guy or this lady that I've listened to their music for 20 years. And here I am asking them questions, and they seem like they're having a good time, which is pretty cool too.
It's also great to hear it from like a listener's perspective, because it really makes them people. And I feel like you can often forget that they are from just hearing their music, seeing them on the field, something like that. And
you're exactly right. Yeah, I've worked 25 years in concert industry, and so I was the guy who worked backstage putting the shows on. So I got to know the artists off stage. And so you're right. When the lights go on, a lot of times it's a different figure, a different artist, a different person. But they're all just people like us. I've had a couple that were not great to work with. I won't mention those yet. That's another podcast maybe. But most of them are just great. And I sit there and watched a baseball game with Branford Marcellus and his band. And, you talk things other than just music with those folks. But it is really cool. And you're right. Listeners are able to relate to them in that way.
And what is your best advice for young people who are looking to get into the industry?
One of my favorite subjects, Lizzie. Great question. Get practical experience. Again, that practical experience is going to allow you to figure out early on, this is what I want to do the rest of my life, or this isn't what I want to do. It's not like I saw in that movie. I thought it was going to be like this, but it's not. The earlier you can figure that out, the quicker you can start attaching to doing things that will get you better at that. Like I said, that practical experience told you all in class, is so important on your resume, so very important. And going out and getting that practical experience is what's going to lead you to find what you love to do, marrying that passion with a paycheck, so you never have to get up and work a day in your life. And you also are able to find out things that you didn't know existed, like, for instance, the Lost and Found Records Record Day, Record Store Day, which is tomorrow. I never really thought about being an MC, but this job and being in radio, because and then booking concerts and being in the concert industry, I've became an MC over the years and pretty good at it, and I'm asked to do that at a lot of different things. So I'll be MCing this tomorrow, which is kind of an offshoot of what I do from radio. But again, I would have never done it unless I tried it. So that's what I'm saying is, guys, don't just depend on reading about it in a book or going and looking at a video on YouTube. You got to do it. You gotta dig in. You gotta ask questions. You gotta go find professionals that you can do internships with or even shadow. Believe me, they'll let you, because they're looking for, as they say, good help is hard to find. They're looking for people they're identifying and going, I think this person could do a really good job here. Maybe we should give them a part-time job, because my first gig in radio started as an internship, and they hired me the first day as a part-time employee. So I would have never have happened to me if I didn't take that leap and go, I want to go get this internship. Right. Absolutely, Lizzie, you're right.
All right, and before we let you go, we actually have a mailbag question from the desk.
All right, hit me.
All right, today's mailbag question is, if you had to listen to one album for the rest of your life and you can never listen to any other, what would it be?
Oh, man. Oh, man. Probably the Rolling Stones' Exile on Main Street, but Prince's Sign of the Times is right behind there. So I mean, I've got a deserted island disc of or list of records, but Stones are my favorite. Prince is my favorite. Best concert I ever seen in my life was in 1983 at the Civic Coliseum. It was Prince, and I was on the front row of it. So. I'd probably, if I had to take one, it'd probably be the Stones. But if I could take two, that'd really help,
Okay, thank you so much for your time. And Panther Network, if you want to see more videos like this, make sure to like and comment down below. And make sure to check out Record Store Day tomorrow at Lost and Found Records.
Absolutely. Go Panthers!